Hello and welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel, brought to you in partnership with Hertfordshire Mind with myself, Jacob Culshaw. No Charlie Zazera this week. Sam Ucko's back in for a substitution. Sam, we had the post-match point, didn't we, at West Brom? But as Jackson in the comment section, it feels like we haven't done a Sunday night live stream in a little while. And yeah, it is after a Watford defeat, but it's nice to be back. It must be nice for you as well, obviously, with the time difference for the last 50 days or so.
Yeah, exactly. This is my first live stream online in a long time. I think it must be since that Middlesbrough game where Kadro Bar scored and we won 2-1. Feels like a long time ago, that goal now. Yeah, it's great to be back. And I think Charlie Zazera put it right a few times last season when we were going through a difficult patch. Even when Watford lose, it's nice to have just a bit of a therapy session after the game.
Yeah, absolutely. One man who was there as well, along with Sam, Henry Bennett. Now, you might recognise Henry already. I'm sure you do across our Twitter content on WD18 fans, where Henry's doing an analyst piece every single week after a game. Henry, I'd imagine the Burnley one's on the way, but how are you getting on, mate? And also a debut on the live stream as well. So a pleasure to have you on, bud.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, the Burnley one is already on the way. It's been very, very tough to rewatch it so far, especially that first half. I think there's a lot of things I need to go through, especially I need to focus on one player specifically, which I think we're going to cover today anyways. But there's a lot of things to go through. I think we could have avoided a few phases where we got dominated completely. I feel like we did start well, but then we just, again, it happened both halves. We started well, then came back into our shell, and then we scored that late goal, but didn't really put any pressure in. So it's on the way, but it'll be, again, from me, as was Luton and also Plymouth as well, just something I can rip into and just say, well, enough.
Get straight into it. Look, I mean, Henry said that's another away defeat on the road for Watford. That's 7 now this season. Now, obviously, we caveat that with our home record being so good, the third best in the Championship, but our away form is one of the worst. Actually, I think it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 teams. So we're sitting at about 14th, 15th in our away form, which isn't as bad as I've made out there. But compared to our home form, it really is chalk and cheese for Watford. It did finish Burnley 2, Watford 0. A bit of housekeeping before we get into the live stream today. If you are listening on audio, drop us a 5-star review. It really does help us out on Spotify and iTunes. I know more people as we go are listening on podcasts, which we really do appreciate. If you are watching on YouTube, drop us a like, subscribe to WD18, comment down below your thoughts as always in the live chat. But also anything we discuss here today, let us know your thoughts and opinions below. We always get back to you and always read the comments as well. We've already had a few in from Ben, who can't make the stream tonight, but he says we've got to analyse the defensive shambles. That was the opener. Really naive setup from Tom Cleverley. Abysmal structures playing one of the games of the season where you need to be compact. A bit of XG stats there as well. We'll get into that. Evening, Ian. A truly frustrating result, but I'm afraid inevitable after the 9th minute. I think the 2 home games next week against Portsmouth and Cardiff must wins or must results to keep moving forwards. Charlotte says regroup for Boxing Day. So, Sam, before we get into sort of the finer details and really delving deeper into this Watford's performance at this moment in time, what was your overall assessment coming away from Turf Moor yesterday after a defeat for Vicar Drive, a defeat for Watford at Turf Moor? It did finish, obviously, Watford 2. Goodness me, I'm all over the shop here. Burnley 2, Watford 1. So what was your overall assessment, Sam, on the result yesterday? He's gone. Henry, you might have to jump in it. Overall assessment, Henry, on the defeat yesterday. I did forget about Bars.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I felt like when we came early into the game, I thought, okay, we're going to nick a result here, because I thought we pressured really well in the first 5 minutes. We got a few chances down their right hand side, but then I just think we opened ourselves up into the game, and I feel like it's been quite a few times it's happened this season where we've just been on top and we've just been opened up by a few passes. I think the goal came from quite simply an easy chance to defend, and I think we just didn't stay compact. The crossing was fine. I didn't think we could do anything about it. But I think with the Rucci, he's got to sort of gauge whether to engage in that sort of press or not. I know there's going to be questions asked about the goalkeeping, and I think a lot of people will say it's not great from both goals even. But I think the first one is just, I'm not entirely sure what he's doing, to be honest with you. And I am a scapegoat for Backman quite a bit, but it's just some of the things he does, especially like in terms of like trying to get us out of trouble, is definitely tough watch, especially with the last two when we're trying to get another goal and he's just kicking the ball out of play. It's a bit it's not ideal from a goalkeeper, and I think, people will scapegoat him for the right reasons, and I think there is a reason too, but overall it just wasn't good enough as a whole.
Sam, before you jumped off, just with a couple of technical issues, what was your sort of thoughts and feelings coming away from Turf Moor?
Yeah, sorry about that. I left the Wi-Fi in Australia, I think. Yeah, I think leaving Turf Moor, my first thought was, and Tom Cleverley said as much in his post-match interview, I thought the result really flattered Watford, to be honest with you. I think on reflection, people will look at 2-1 and almost think Watford battled really, really hard there. It's quite a close game between two teams near the top of the table, but I think Watford absolutely battered yesterday. And Burnley didn't really have to get out of second gear, I didn't think. I didn't think we necessarily saw the best of Burnley for as good as I thought they were as well, particularly that second goal. We'll go into the defending from Watford, but the way that Burnley moved the ball, I thought was probably best that I've seen in the division for a goal, to be honest with you, this season against Watford at least. So, yeah, I thought that the scoreline flattered Watford. A really, really disappointing performance, particularly after what we saw against West Brom, which was really, really good last week.
Just on that, if we get the momentum bar up, which has become a feature on WD18, what Sam says there is really backed up. You look at sort of the spikes in Burnley pressure in that first half, by far the better team. After Watford actually started in the first 5 minutes pretty well, and then continued to dominate with obviously the goal, and then from that moment onwards with a better team. Then went into half time, Tom Cleverley tweaked it, didn't he, with a couple of substitutions. You saw that spike towards the end where we managed to get a Quadro bar consolation goal, which you did think maybe could. I mean, there was a good save as well, which you must mention, from James Trafford from Francisco Sierralta. But overall, Burnley were the better team. Henry, just to bring it back to what Sam said there about Tom Cleverley's comments, I wanted to just read a couple of things he said actually post-match. Interview with Andrew French and sort of the mix zone after the game. Cleverley angry as he attacks unacceptable Watford. And a couple of lines here really stood out to me. If you guys can see that on screen, I think losing 2-1 flatters us, to be honest. And I said that to the players afterwards. Let's not fall into a false sense of security of losing 2-1 at Burnley, because that could have been a lot more convincing for them. That performance from us today was nowhere near acceptable. What was your thoughts on those comments, Henry?
I absolutely agree with them. I think they tell the story of the game completely. And I think, in all honesty, they could have been 3-4 up. Even in that first half, if you could really, flatter them, as Tom Cleverley, could have said to us. But, it's definitely right. And I think there were a lot of performances in that squad which I thought, do they really want to be at the club? And it's definitely in a way where when we're watching them just play and trying to, move the ball, it's just, we had a lot of passes that were going to just straight away from what we're trying to do. And I feel like, in a sense, that we're just not. We don't look right away from home, and that's the main thing. What I'm trying to get at. But I think he's got every right to say those sort of things, and I think it sums it up perfectly.
For sure, we'll get into the conversation about this Watford team home and away, because it is a real contrast. Sam, just picking out a couple of more comments from Cleverley. Another one that stood out to me: that Burnley showed more personality to play when they were on the ball. They were better at solving problems, but most worrying of all, they ran more and they tackled harder. It was a really disappointing afternoon. That last line in particular, Sam, that's concerning for me. You don't want to go too overboard because it is a Burnley team, but the fact that he felt that they ran more and they tackled harder and basically wanted it more than the Watford team is a tad concerning, don't you think?
100%. Yeah. I think we can all accept losing when we almost see a performance out there which is, full-blooded and full of personality. I think the issue was, I don't want to say Watford weren't trying and the effort levels weren't there, because unlike other seasons, I don't think that's the case with this team. I do think they are trying, and yes, it's just a persistent issue that we're having away from home at the moment. But I just think Watford failed to show any sort of personality after that first 5 minutes where we looked like we were really in control. And then Burnley came back into the game, showed, I think, that they were potentially the more technical team than us. And from that moment, we just went into our shells. And I think there was an element of stage fright, to be honest with you, with this Watford team, going away from home against one of the best teams in the league. And I think there was almost this immediate acceptance, particularly once we went 1-0 down, that we'd lost the game. And there was no real belief or desire that we'd get back into the game at that point. And then at 2-0 as well. I know we scored after that, and Sierralta had a good chance that forced a good save from James Trafford. But again, I just didn't really think that there was any real belief coming from the Watford players yesterday. And being in the away end yesterday, I'm not sure what you thought with that, Henry, but I think that did sort of come into the away end as well. I felt like because we saw that almost the players thought that they wouldn't win this, I think almost in the away end as well, there was this acceptance that we weren't going to turn it around as well. The weather was terrible yesterday as well. I'm not going to bring out the tie from AFTV saying it's been raining, etc. But I think all of it just contributed to a miserable day, and I just felt like that at one point it was almost just like, let's just get out of here and get back to Vicarage Road, and that needs to be addressed because the away form isn't good enough.
Henry, was that the mood in the away ends? Just to add,
it was. Yeah, that is what happened in the away, and I think after like 5-10 minutes when they started getting down that left side, it transferred over, and I think you'll see a lot of Watford games. If we're not playing right, we're not getting our passes right, you'll always see our heads go down in the crowd, and I think a lot of people will see that, especially. I think maybe in home games, especially at West Brom, the first 20 minutes we saw it a bit, but yeah, it was the mood, and I wouldn't say it was the greatest of away days, but it's like when you come up to a game and you dominate for 5 minutes, it's sort of, you want to set the tone for the whole game, and after those 5 minutes, we just backed off and we came back into like a defensive shape. I thought we just tried to defend our way out the game, but I just didn't think it worked at all.
On those comments, and sorry to delve a bit deeper into them, Sam, but I can't remember a head coach maybe since, well, I'm trying to think of a name here, where they've been as outspoken as that on a performance. I was just kind of going through sort of the last couple of seasons, and there hasn't been some good ones in Watford time, but that's the first time I think Tom Cleverley probably has snapped a little bit at, not in the way he delivered it, but what sort of, he was very frank, very honest, very angry, as Andrew French said about the Watford performance. And it's quite outspoken. And I think public criticism from a head coach hasn't really happened often in the Watford head coach. So were you surprised by those comments?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. I think you could see in his eyes as well. You could tell he was absolutely livid after that game. I see Jack's put it in the comments there, but it sort of reminded me as well of some interviews we saw towards the end of Chris Wilder's time at Watford as well. If you remember a couple of those interviews where he was absolutely fuming as well. I think in terms of performance, I think, to be honest with you, he just seems fed up of seeing the same performances over and over again away from home. And I know the performance at Luton was 100% a lot worse. And obviously the circumstances were different. We were all even more angry after the Luton game because of who they are. But I think those two games, the Luton game and this game, show an underlying issue here, which is a personality problem away from home, where we just don't. There just seems to be a real lack of belief that we're going to win games. And there was the Sheffield Wednesday game, obviously. Obviously, we were unbelievable that day, but also Sheffield Wednesday really played into our hands. Plymouth, I felt like, even though we went 2-1 up towards the end, no one was really surprised where we conceded at the end. When Plymouth were piling on that pressure, it felt inevitable that we would concede at that point. So it just seems to be this recurring theme here that there's a lack of belief away from home. And we've spoken about it so many times this season. And we're going to do almost a mid-season review, I think, in a few weeks' time. But I just don't really, I just don't really get what the difference is between the team that we see at home versus away, because it's two different teams. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest with you. It's bizarre because the performance levels are so different.
What do you put it down to, Henry? I mean, it's very, very easy to say one's better than the other. One thing I think is similar between both, and Watford have been, I think Tom Cleverley's doing a superb job, by the way, when you put it in the context of this season. In terms of actually how much has been reinvested back into the squads, the fact it's his first managerial job, the fact that he's taken players from the fringe and really transformed them to be a main part of this team. But one thing I've seen consistently this season, we have been slightly lucky at times, but also in home games, we are pretty flat normally for the first 45 minutes. Don't get me wrong, there's been moments, I think, in the first 45, but I think both home and away, there's been a bit of a theme where we don't really start games quickly. Sorry, to bring it back round to the away form, can you put your finger on why there is a difference between the home and away form? Because myself, Sam and Charlie have spent every single week trying to work out why that's the case. So do you have any theories or answers for that?
I think for me, from a tactical standpoint, we always want to comply with whoever we go to. I feel like with Sheffield United, we tried to go man for man with them, especially. And that was a big game for us. For Luton, we tried to match them with how physical they were going to be. And, you can't match a team to their strengths. If they're going to try and muscle you, they will outmuscle us. If they're going to try and outplay you across the midfield, they will outplay you across the midfield. We can't match teams with their own game, especially away from home, because when teams have done that with us, especially Bristol City, and West Brom was another one. I know West Brom changed their shape to a back three to try and combat with us because we went to a 4. And then I think with Bristol City, they tried to put an overload in our midfield, in their midfield, just to come back with us. And I think when teams away from home try and go to other places to go and beat them at their own game, it doesn't work. And I feel like that's something we've done across this whole season.
For sure. Just to sort of re-emphasise that point, a couple of stats just to show you, to highlight the difference really but in this Watford team. If you look at the 10 games at home, points per game, the percentage of wins, goals scored per game, clean sheets. If you look at the stats here, they're really, really high and in a good spot. You then switch the 11 games away from home and you look at it there, goals conceded up to 2. Goals scored per game are slightly lower. Clean sheets at 0. We haven't kept the clean sheet away from home. Team scoring first, lower. Opponent scoring first, higher. So basically, it is really chalk and cheese with this Watford team when you look at from a statistical point of view. To take it back round to yesterday, Sam, if we look at the lineup that Watford's that Tom Cleverley put out, he made 2 changes, and we debated actually going into this one what formation Tom Cleverley would go with. He went with the 4 at the back, with Batman in goal, and Ngakia, Porteous, Pollock, and Larouci as the back 4. Duomo came in with Larouci into the team to replace Morris and Loser, who was ill, with Barr on the right-hand side. Sissoko as captain with Chatfordazzi kind of dipping into the 3 where we don't have the ball and then being more offensive when we do have it, with Vata on the left-hand side and Bio through the middle. Were you surprised? I guess the surprise is the word, but did you expect, probably is a better question, to see Tom Cleverley go with the 4 instead of the 3 at the back? And I'm sure we'll touch on the goals, but it felt like a decision that definitely, massively impacted the way we played yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think either of them necessarily surprised me, to be honest with you, in terms of whether we'd gone with a 5 or a 4. I think you don't really change a winning team, and obviously we were enforced into the change of Loser coming out with illness, and I don't think it was a surprise seeing Larouci come in for James Morris. And I think in that respect, you don't change a winning shape, perhaps. I just think we've seen the 5 back so many times this season, and you imagine that the players, while it's to their strength, some of them, the likes of Rocco Vata, I'll even say Chatfordazzi, playing with that 4 in the back and frees them up in midfield and attack a bit more. I think other players are still probably bedding into that formation. The likes of Vacu and Bio, I think probably still are. I think Moussa Sissoko as well, who will come on to with his, I'll come on to it because I think that was an terrible performance from Moussa Sissoko yesterday. I think it's an interesting place to go to almost continue trying out a new shape that I know went well against West Brom, but I think there were so many times yesterday where Burnley had overloads, particularly on that left-hand side, and they targeted Yasser Larouci, they targeted Cherami and Ngakia as well, and I think we would have really benefited from having a back 5 in that situation. And Cleverley said it as well. I would have changed it after 20 minutes, to be honest with you. I'm surprised he waited so long and changed it at half-time where he brought on Francisco Ciaralta. I'd have changed it after 20 minutes, to be honest with you, because it was clear it wasn't working. And
go full Slavisa Jokanovic at Brighton.
Pretty much, yeah. We've seen it work before, and I think Cleverley will learn this as a manager, and it's still very rare because I don't think it's a sign of a good manager, but I think it would have been brave, and Watford fans would have completely understood if he did change it after 20 minutes yesterday, because I think it would have given us a much better chance of turning it around.
Yeah, would you have made that change, Henry? Would you have expected him to go bold? Because he did make the changes relatively soon after half time, but would you have made that change as early as that, or is that too ballsy to go that early?
I think I wanted him to make the change. I think starting with that back 4 was I was a bit concerned anyways, because I thought we're seeing Larouci at left back, but I think we've learned from Burnley he cannot play as a left back in a 4. He got too many chances down his side, and he just completely let play just go right past him. And I think, as a 4, we cannot start Larouci as, he's so attacking minded, but he hasn't got any one-on-one defensive ability. So that's why I think even going with a 4 at the back with Larouci, if we are going to play Larouci, let's play him as a 3, as a wing back. I still think playing as the 4 was pretty bold. But would I like to see it in the first half? Yes, is the main thing. I think they already knew, Burnley as a team, they were going to go overloads on their left and right hand sides. I didn't think there would be any chance of going through the middle, because they knew that we were going to sit just that touch deeper than normal. But I think once they found their gaps on the left hand side, where they got 2 or 3, maybe sort of clear cut chances, but sort of just chances where they can get the ball into the box, where they play 2 passes around them and they're basically in on one-on-one with Ngakia, then there's plenty of time for them to whip it across. And I think I would have liked to see it a lot more earlier.
For sure. Sam, before we get onto the screenshots and you get doing your full Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher on us, just a few comments from the live chat. Really interesting one from Charlotte, lads. Jump in what you make of this one. At home, perhaps we concentrate more on just playing our own game. Clevs does seem to tweak things away from home. Maybe that just puts doubt into the players' minds. Don't know if there's anything in that, but I do think there's an interesting thing to be made, Sam, of Clevs does tweak it more away from home than he does at home in terms of our style, I think.
Yeah, I think I've never thought about it like this before, but I think Henry was spot on. I feel like at when we go away from home, we sometimes try and match the way that other teams play, and because they're better at it than us, and we don't focus on our own game, we ultimately just get outclassed. So, yeah, I think that's probably comes down to that. Frustrating one, and we saw that again yesterday. And I've just seen Jacob in the live chat as well, Burnley fan. So
we did a video with Jacob, great guy, about how do Watford beat Burnley, and the answer is we don't know. But Jacob's a really good lad. He does some great content, so make sure to check out his channel. And I'm sure he'll be buzzing with the result. Yesterday, on that early change, Luan says, I think making a change in the first 20 minutes, you have to take the human element into it as well, which is very true. Dressing room as a whole might not react too well effectively after being humiliated by being subbed after 20 minutes. Just a couple other comments going back up to Ben. The XG second half was evens. First half, 0.76 to 0.07. This one for him is on Tom Cleverley. Could not play out. Had all four attacking players waiting for the ball that never came. Team was cut into two by Burnley's press. What did we make of Duomo coming in, Henry? As someone who, whenever I've watched him, I think he's looked really bright, really comfortable on the ball. I think we have to take into account that it's not easy for a player to go out for 3 or 4 games and come back in just straight away. He came in at Sheffield Wednesday, did really well. Then he played at Swansea, if I remember correctly, and then he's out the team for a little bit, and then he comes back in. So it looked, with Louza being out and Tom Delibashiru not going to be around for a little while due to his injury, is he someone that you would like to see a run of games with?
Yeah, I'd say so, but not with Sissoko. I think as a pivot, it didn't work. I think mainly because Sissoko tried to take control of that midfield, but he just didn't control anything in a sense. I think mainly because Sissoko's a weird player. He's obviously played at a high standard, but he's dropped off completely. And I think Sam is dying to rip into him in about 5 minutes' time. But the main thing with Sissoko is he just doesn't engage with the ball. He doesn't engage in pressing. He doesn't engage. He doesn't look to shift the play. He's sort of just an extra man that we've got. And I saw a tweet while I was actually watching the game. We're from a Burnley fan. He said we're effectively playing against 10 men and noting Sissoko as, some like he shouldn't even be on the pitch. Like if other people from, other football clubs are saying that, he doesn't even look like he's there, it's sort of different. But going back to Duomo, I think from what I've seen, he does remind me of Ismail Kone, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on this one. He's got a similar body profile. His control in areas that he did see with us was fantastic. He did have a bit of momentum when he did have the ball, just playing the ball quickly, a few quick touches around the play. I think there's still a lot to be developed with Duomo. He has only, sort of come into the side recently. He's only had a few starts, only played a few minutes in there. I think he's doing okay with the under-21s. I haven't really watched him a lot, but I think he's doing all right. But I want to say that the progress will come sooner than later, because I think there's a lot of glimpses that we will see of Duomo throughout the rest of the season. But I think although he didn't have a lot to do, or mainly because Sissoko dictated a lot of that play, I think we're still going to see a lot more of him this season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's 20 years old as well, right? I mean, he's someone I think with time, if he gets more game time, he'll develop into a good talent. Now, Sam, let's touch on the 2 goals. So, from a Watford perspective, talk us through it. Where did it go wrong? Why do you think it happens? And yeah, run us through it, Sam.
Yeah, so I'm just going to share my screen here, going full Charlie Zazera / Gary Neville on Monday Night Football. So with the first goal here, God, yeah, I spent some time doing the circles, the arrows beforehand. WD team, we're really upgrading here. Get us in that studio soon. There's sort of 2 areas with the first goal that I want to sort of pick up on. Firstly, this is the ball. This is the first area that that I want to focus on, which is the position of the back four, which I actually think is fine here originally, where Hannibal picks up the ball, just where the red line is over here. Obviously, you've got Jeremy Ngakia, Brian Porteous, Matty Pollock, and Yasser Larouci against 3 Burnley attackers. Something that I've credited Porteous for a lot over the last few weeks is I feel like he's become a lot less aggressive and a lot more conservative with his play. Issue is he steps out really, really quickly. And if you go and watch the goal back, you'll see how quickly he jumps out. And ultimately, what that leaves, I need to somehow find a way of skipping to the next one. Here we go. That ultimately leaves over here another almost Burnley are able to go 3 against 2 because Porteous steps out and Ngakia is nowhere to be seen. You've got Matty Pollock being dragged out to the ball over here. And then at this point over here, Larouci's got a choice to make ultimately, whether he tracks the Burnley number 11 down at the bottom or tracks the man in the middle. I actually think he makes the right decision, and we can see he goes with the man in the middle here and blocks off that. The issue with the back four now, obviously, is that because we don't have that third centre back or the full back isn't further out wide, it's left the Burnley man at the back here completely free, and he goes on to score the goal. Before I go on to Sissoko's positioning here, interested in both of you, what you both think. Should Daniel Bachmann be doing better with the goal?
Henry?
Oh, it's a very, very weird one. You know, I'm a goalkeeper myself, and I think, you know, when seeing stuff like this that he does, it does very, very confuse me, you know. But I think he should be doing better. He should be doing a lot better. The way he flaps at the ball is a bit, you know, it's a bit weird. The way he tried to go for the save, and I think the main thing that I wanted to say is that the shot barely has any power on it. It's hit into the ground, it bounces up, and there's barely any pace on the ball. I feel like it is a routine save. I know that does sound controversial, but it does look, from what I saw, it was a routine save. Just if he just, you know, gets his positioning right, because you can just see if you look just in the shot of like his positioning, he's just very close to his. He's not really close to his near post, but he just comes away from it, and I think it just bounces over the top of him. But I feel like it is quite weird because it's a bouncing shot, but again, there's no pace in it. It just looks like it's right at him and he goes really low. But I do want to see him as well in those sort of areas. If you've got a man over the back post, he's isolated. What I do is I just rush out and go for him, because in that sort of position you shouldn't stay on the line. There's no need to, you know, he takes that touch very, very deep into the box, but he takes it really heavy. Look where he ends up between, you know, the first shot here, and if you go to the next one, like he comes in very, very deep into the box. Batman's really good with rushing out, but he doesn't make the right decisions when he needs to. And I feel like rushing out and just, you know, standing your ground in that sort of position just makes sense. But I feel like other people would say the same. But for me, he is largely at fault for the goal.
Yeah, personally, I'd expect Dan to save that. I think he'd be disappointed watching that back that he hasn't saved it. And also, look, I think with us this season, it probably balances itself out in terms of, I think of just recently, Hull away, Dan made a big save. There's been a couple of games at home where he's made some big saves for us. But then also in the same sentence and the same sort of breath, there's been a couple of goals where you'd expect him to do better. So I think it probably evens itself out. I think Dan watching that back would expect to save that. Sam, I wanted to bring you back to what you said though previously about circling Sissoko. If you go to that first slide,
yeah.
So
here we are.
So
yeah,
just on that, right? So just to kind of just go a little bit deeper on it. So I mean, look, if there's a 3 at the back there, I'm just talking systems wise. Porteous would be closer to Hannibal, Pollock would be over, and then you'd have someone in between Larouci and Morris, which would mean that Larouci could actually stay with Jadon Anthony on the left-hand side. Instead, he gets sucked in.
And you avoid that overload over here as well.
Exactly. And the other thing to add to that is you circled Sissoko there. Is that so? If you look at Brownhill just inside, next to Duomo and the referee, should Duomo be the other side of him, or at least be nearer to him, or is that Sissoko's man? Should Duomo be closer to Zian Fleming on the right, or should Duomo go inside to Brownhill, or is that Sissoko's man? Where do you stand on that one?
Well, I'll let one of you or Henry pick up on it tactically. For me here, it's just ultimately an effort for a problem from Moussa Sissoko, because I think when you're playing with a 4 at the back and at a team like Burnley, and you're going to be exposed, particularly if someone like Porteous is going to jump out in positions like that, you're going to have your midfielders busting a gut to get back, basically, and get back into shape. Now, I highlighted here Moussa Sissoko's original position, and as well as that, you've got Duemo's original position as well. If I go through each slide, right, there's Sissoko over there as the ball gets towards, is that Josh Brownhill, who we could argue is Duemo's man? Look where Moussa Sissoko is now, and you'll see this on the video. He is literally walking back. He is absolutely nowhere to be seen by the goal. By the goal. Now, at least for me, if he's my captain and he's my central midfielder when we're being exposed to one of the best teams in the league, I want him absolutely sprinting back to get back into that box. And yes, you might lose your shape and whatnot. Maybe it's Tom Cleverley instructing him. It's just the body language yesterday. I was absolutely livid with it. I never expect my Watford captain to be walking in a position like that when we're clearly exposed. And in fairness to Duemo, I don't think he had his best game yesterday. I don't think he looked as good as in other games, but I think that's partly down to the lack of help that he had from Moussa Sissoko. But the one thing I would say about Duemo is he was absolutely trying to get everywhere. His effort levels were there completely, and he just had absolutely zero help there. Yeah, I just think it's not what you want to see from a Watford captain, to be honest.
On the captaincy, Henry, I've seen shouts for Pollock to get it with recent performances, or even just looking at who's probably the long-term captain at Watford. Cleverley's given it to Sissoko, probably because he played with him and also the experience that Sissoko has. Would you, though, be tempted to move on to Pollock at some point? And if so, when would you do that?
I don't see why there's not a reason to move it to Pollock. I think, when he came into the squad last season, I'd say he broke out. The effort levels he puts in, even when he was sort of fringe player, was just brilliant. And I know he suffered a few setbacks. I know Millwall away was definitely one of them a few seasons ago. But the way he's recovered and the way that I've been hearing from especially Cheltenham fans and Grimsby fans for his times there, respectively, he just works so hard to and the one thing I love about Matty Pollock as well is he loves defending. You want players like that. You want players to love defending. You want players to head the ball away. You want players to go in for a challenge. And I think he's just one of those players that loves to do what he does. And I think his leadership is definitely there as well. You can see him yesterday just barking orders when Batman just stayed in his shell. And I think based off that alone, I would be tempted to move it on at some point. But I don't think. Again, as Lou said, you've got to focus on a dressing room aspect as well. I think if you move it at this point in the season, obviously it could probably upset players. I know that Moussa is quite a prominent figure in the dressing room, and I think he's quite popular amongst a lot of the players as well. But I think if we are going to change it next season, or if Moussa does, end up going next season, which, me personally, it could be the right move for all of us. I think Matty Pollock should definitely be up there in contention.
For sure. Before we move on to the second goal, Sam, just a couple of comments. Ian, you could blame this on me. It never ceases to amaze me that we appear to have the same conversation stream after stream. Tactically, Luan said with this goal, the issue is that you pack the middle and leave the wingers 1v1 versus our fullbacks. So you block everything coming inside. So it leaves the midfield to pick up the runners. Tom Cleverley mentioned this. Terry, good to see you, Terry. Yesterday would have suited Loser, I agree. Sissoko is sadly past his best, but he does have moments of brilliance. But these are becoming very rare. Jack, good to see you, mate. I can't think of anyone more deserving than Pollock for captaincy. His attitude is bang on, even when he wasn't in the team. And also he signed a new long-term contract as well. So I'm sure that conversation will rumble on. We'll probably be back this time next week talking about the same thing. Sam, let's move on to the second goal that Watford conceded. These are the big moments. But in truth, Burnley deserved to win. Quite comfortably in the end, and I think the scoreline did flatter us. But talk us through this goal as well.
Yeah, I want to start off saying in credit to Burnley. I said this at the start of the stream. I don't think I've seen a team for a goal move the ball as well as they did for this goal yesterday. A lot of their fans absolutely loved this goal, and I know we're going to zoom in on the defending now, but I do think it was preventable in a lot of ways for Watford. So we can originally see as well here the shape of it's a back five at this point, but also, I mean, it's a back four here on this shot. We got Ryan Andrews here, we got Sierralta, Porteous, and Pollock. And I think that's Quadro Bar here, marking his man out wide, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it's,
Or is it
Ebeselli.
Ebeselli? It's Ebeselli, sorry, my bad. Yeah. And basically we can see here, I'm not sure who the number 24 is for Burnley, but he's basically picked up a little pocket here, which you think is basically fine, because particularly with what we do next, which I actually don't mind too much, to be honest with you, which is basically we try and form a box to box in the Burnley number 14. As you can see, we've got Ebeselli here, Chatfatazzi, Duomo, and Matty Pollock. Now, basically, what the issue with this here, right, is that we've left this number 14 with way too much room, and because we seem so almost adamant to try and keep that shape, we eventually just end up getting dragged around. Now I'm going to talk about Moussa Sissoko's positioning here, because what I think really should be happening is Duomo should be going towards that number 14 and Sissoko should be forming the edge of that square over here to try and block off all the passing moves, basically. What ends up happening is Sissoko ends up completely ball watching. The ball ends up on the number 8 over here. Sissoko still hasn't moved from the last image. He's still not moved. He's still turned around. And in the meantime, Burnley are absolutely tearing us apart before, who was it? Was it Brownhill was able to tap it in and able to finish it? Now, this is what I mean by yesterday. I felt like Duomo wasn't helped at all, because what Sissoko should be doing as captain is screaming him to get out to the number 14. Then he should be going over there. Instead, what we see a passage of about 5 or 6 seconds of play where our captain isn't moving anywhere near around the Burnley box, and it allows Brownhill to end up putting in a really nice finish into that far corner. I think it's almost something that you'd work on a lot in training, almost like rondos and pass and moving drills. And what you basically want is all your players to be moving when they don't have the ball. And that's not what we've seen from Moussa Sissoko there. Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I'm scapegoating him a bit. But I saw the goal back straight away in the car on the way home. And I was thinking, what on earth is the Watford captain doing here? Because that was not good enough at all. And that the ball should have been closed down by him a lot quicker.
Yeah, really interesting stuff from Sam. I mean, it doesn't look good from a Sissoko point of view at all. I think the biggest thing for me is that captaincy side of things, where even some of the dark arts that I think Tom Cleverley's mentioned a few times about sort of getting in the referee's ear. I know it's simple stuff like that, but Sissoko doesn't really go over to the referee to speak first. He doesn't really play the game smart, and Batman couldn't really do it when he was captain because he was in goal. Now you've got a guy in the centre of the pitch that you feel needs to be in the referee's ear and do these little things as a captain that you kind of expect now. Do you know someone who does it really well? I was at Millwall Blackburn yesterday, and we've played Blackburn this season. And funnily enough, I think that was the player that Sissoko got sent off against. But Lewis Travis, the Blackburn captain, is constantly in the ear of the referee, constantly, all game long. And he's one of those players that actually you'd hate to play against, because he is constantly doing that. And he's doing the things that you'd expect to do as a captain. Look, I agree with Henry. I agree with Sam. I would make Pollock captain personally. I think when you think long term, you think of the attributes you want to see from your captain. Someone who's going to be playing week in, week out. And he's also young. He's a young captain as well, which I think is something really good. We can build him with that and sort of build the backline with him. Should we take it with a bit more of a positive note, though, Sam, on to that final goal? Did you do screenshots for that one, or was it just
I did do screenshots from the Watford goal. Maybe that was me just being too much half glass empty. I did want to talk about Quadro Bar. I thought, again, he was a massive positive for Watford yesterday. I thought he was the outlet. I thought he's just such a powerful winger. And friend of the channel, Sam Adams, he took me home yesterday, and we were almost talking about players that you could almost compare to him. And there's an element of Adama Traore to him, I feel like, and as well as other players, because of the way he's just raw pace and raw physicality. And I've spoken about this before. I absolutely love watching him. It was a scrappy goal yesterday, but a lovely finish on the volley as well. Don't take anything away from that finish against a good goalkeeper in James Trafford, who made a brilliant save just a few minutes before from Sierra Alta. So, yeah, I thought he was another bright spark. The question is, I feel like, particularly if we go back to the back five, we're not going to see both Bar and Vata. The question is, which do you start and which do you bring on off the bench? And I'd start Bar and bring Vata on, to be honest. Not sure what you two would do if we go back to the five.
But do you know what? Before we touch on that, it's a great question. Henry, at any point yesterday when we were putting a bit of pressure on towards the end, and to be fair play to Cleverley, he made the changes. He had to. I think he knew he had to. Sierra Alta came close. He forced a good save from Trafford, as Sam said. Bar scored. Did you think at any point that we can nick a point?
Well, I think as a Watford fan, I think you boys both know it, but it's the hope that kills you at this point. I think, for me, I've always got hope that if we get one within the last 10 minutes, then maybe we can go and nick one. But I think Yesterday was a bit different. I felt like once we got that goal, again, we sat back, and I thought those last 4 minutes when we went into the added time, I think it was like 6 or 7. We just didn't look like we wanted to go forward. We looked like we were like, okay, right, we're gonna take 2-1. Let's just sit back and just make sure it's not free. And then I think what sums it up is especially I think the 2 backman kicks at the end. And I think anybody who saw those 2 kicks is going to say immediately that it killed the game. And I think Sam has got my exact reaction to that. That is exactly what my face was looking like yesterday when I had it. It was just very, very poor. And to see those sort of kicks happen, where he's just slicing the ball, he's not even looking at it, he just takes anger into the game and he wants to anger out the ball, and he just slices it out just onto the touchline. It's not good, and it's just not what you want to see at all. But it happens in football. But I think if you're going to go and push for a winner, you shouldn't really be in your own half and messing about with the ball, trying to clear it if you're trying to push for a winner, especially in 2 minutes before the end.
Burnley 2, Watford 1. Just final thoughts on this one, and let us know any questions before we wrap up, because there's a couple of bits to get into. Sam, on that question, I'm actually going to throw it back to you. If we move back to the back 3, and whether we do that at home against Portsmouth, weirdly, I'd probably be surprised if Cleverley did that at home to Portsmouth, considering the joy we did get against West Brom at home and against a Portsmouth team who have been struggling this season in their promotion back to the Championship. They're sitting in 19th at the moment, just above Hull City on 20
Good
points.
win yesterday for them, though.
Good win yesterday, to be fair, against Coventry. But a team that, look, I think with our home record, you'd expect us to get a result against. With that, Sam, 2 questions. Firstly, do you go back to the 4 or do you play the 3 against Portsmouth? We'll do that one, and then we'll do the Bar Vata one.
I'd go back to the 5 and the 3 at the back, to be honest with you. And if we need to change it, I would change it back. I was full of praise for it during the after the West Brom game, and I thought we absolutely nailed it, to be honest with you. And one thing I've praised Tom Cleverley for as well is how adaptable we are in games as well. And I feel like we can change it back. I just feel with the defensively with this Watford team, particularly the cover that midfield give and what I've gone into on Sissoko today, and the way he also exposes Duomo as well. I feel like with this Watford team, it's going to be a case. I think we're going to see if we're going to win games or push for a top 6 place. Sorry. We are going to have to expect almost more difficult first half 0-0s and then go for it in the second half.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, Henry, if we do move back to the 3, it does beg the question, Vata or Bar, because we can't start both of them really. If you're going to play Georgie I mean, Georgie's going to play as sort of a left forward, isn't he? So do you play Bar or Vata really?
Again, it's a very, very tough question. It's really, really tough. But I think it has to be Bar that stays in the side. I think he offers us a bit. I know it's early doors, but he offers us just that bit more compared to Vata. And I think when we're playing with Bar in that side, we've got something that we haven't seen from a Watford player in a while. I've been speaking to one of his coaches from the under 21 side, John, who I play football with on a Monday, and he said to this himself. But we haven't seen a player. I know, but we haven't seen a player like this at Watford who wants to take the ball and just drive forward in a wobble. And I think if he just keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to be levels above some of this Watford side in a few years' time. And I think if we just keep him in that side, he's going to produce things. And I think even if we stop Vata, he's going to come on and he'll start affecting the game. He'll drive at your man, and he makes defenders on edge, and that is something that you want from just a single player. If you can't do it with Shakradatsi, why can't we do it with Bar? So I think even though we've got so much quality with Bar and Vata in the side, I think Bar has to just keep that place.
Do you know what? Mine for that depends probably on the player behind him, because I think if you have Ngakia, who's a bit more defensive, you probably have the license maybe a bit more to go with either. Well, I think if you've got, again, really, really difficult, but if you have maybe Ebisele, I think out of all the wing backs we have with Andrews, Ebisele, and Ngakia, you'd say Ngakia is the most defensive, Andrews is the most offensive, and Ebisele is probably a bit of both. So I think Tom Cleverley's selection will probably depend on who's the wing back or the full back playing behind him. And one question I wanted to wrap up on, because look, one thing to mention as well, I know it's been a little bit obviously glass half empty today. I think we're all frustrated with the result yesterday. This is a Burnley team under Scott Parker who haven't lost this season at Turf Moor. They haven't lost at home. They've got, I think, the best defence statistically in Europe in this season as well. But if you flip it, Watford haven't really been impacted in terms of the league position. I think they dropped one place to 8th, just behind West Brom. But we do have a game in hand. If we win our game in hand, we could go into the playoffs into 6th, obviously with Middlesbrough and West Brom playing a game more. And then you look at our run for the next 8 games. We've got Portsmouth at home, Cardiff at home, QPR away, Sheffield United at home, Cardiff away, Derby away, Preston at home, and Coventry away before February. And if you look at those lads, Sam, bar Sheffield United at home, I'd fancy Watford to get a result in most of them. Now, whether we do or not, but they're winnable games, probably away from the Sheffield United one.
Yeah, definitely. And this is, I said this last time on the post-match pint, the term winnable game is what scares me with Watford, to be honest with you, because, I've always said this, I feel like the home form, I hope it doesn't end anytime soon, but I feel like the real test is potentially going to come against a team that almost could provide a bit of a banana skin. Potentially Portsmouth could be that team on Thursday, we'll see. I think we'll learn a lot more about where this Watford team are going to finish or look to push to finish come the end of this Christmas period. I hope, I don't want to speak too soon, touch wood, we can rule out a relegation battle at this point. The question is now with this Watford side, are we going to be a team who push for that top 6 place, or is it just going to be a team who end up trying to push for a top half finish? I think both of those, if you offered me both at the start of the season, I would have said brilliant first season under Clevs, and I still stand by it. I wouldn't go too overboard with the defeat. It's frustrating, as annoying as it is, but yeah, I think with the position that we're in, if we are going to push for a top 6 finish, these next 5 or 6 games are absolutely massive for us.
Just a couple of questions to wrap up. One from Lou Orns for you, Henry. What is a priority in the January transfer window, do you reckon? Obviously, with it really just on the eve of the new year. Left back, midfielder, or number 9, if you had to pick one of those 3?
I think it's again really tough because you've got 3, I'd say, credible positions when we need players in. I feel like when we play Eboseli at left back, we are limiting ourselves to his own ability. I feel like the midfield, we still need a lot of numbers in there, and I think a number 9 is a position that we've been crying out for properly in ages. I don't know if you lot have seen, but I think what's the guy's name? Louis Barry. He's just been recalled from Aston Villa. Been rumours of him going up to the Championship in January, and I think for me, if there's any chance of us getting a number 9, I feel like there's only one player, and I feel that has to be him. So I'm going to say number 9 only if we can take a punt on him, because he is just the one player that I feel like will just take this out to another level. And I feel like we've been needing an out-and-out striker for absolutely ages. So I think if we've got any chance of finishing, like Cleversley wanted at the start of the season in the playoffs, then I think we are going to need a number 9, and we need one desperately.
I'd agree. I'd go number 9, Sam. If you had the choice of the 3. Left back, midfielder, or number 9?
Midfielder for me, central midfielder. I just feel like we don't know the timescale on that Tom Daley-Bashiri return. It seems from what Clevs was saying, the last update was probably the most positive one. It looks like it could be one for the new year. The first couple of weeks in January, we could see Tom Daley back. But we know with his injury record, can we necessarily rely on that? I feel like Imran Louza is a shoe in there. Duomo is very good, but can we necessarily? We don't know what him and Louza looks like, and he's also still a very young player. Musa Sissoko, I'm done with for now, to be honest with you. So I think a central midfielder, I think, is the key here, because, and here's my, I feel like it's going to be an unpopular opinion, because I don't know, maybe this is reactionary based on what I saw in the last 10 minutes yesterday. I'd start Jefferson just for one of the next 2 games, either against Cardiff or against Portsmouth. I just want to see what it'd be like from the start, because he's just seemed a lot more energetic. And yes, he's very rough around the edges. His first touch isn't unbelievable at all, and he didn't really have any opportunities yesterday. But I feel like he's offering us a new dynamic when he comes onto the pitch. And yesterday, I did think we improved going forward when Jefferson came on. So I'd be keen to start him in one of the games, Rest bio.
Well, Sam, a lot of people said, granted, the bar's been quite low with Jefferson so far, but people said it was easily his best 20 minutes so far in a Watford chat in terms of cameos. Yeah. What was it about what did he offer?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you saw in the away at Henry. I just thought that there was a real. Previously with Jepson, I think he's just looked like a frustrated figure. He's had his head down and really just hasn't looked too interested. But I thought yesterday he was just full of that energy, full of that desire to win the ball back, trying to win those points for Watford. And I saw that in his warm up as well. I thought his warm up was really aggressive. Warm up is the wrong term. I'm not sure the best term for it, but you could tell he was really, really up for it yesterday. And I think potentially he knows that this could be last chance for him at Watford. I'm not sure if he even wants to stay at this point, to be honest with you. But if he's going to try and keep this loan going, unless we rip it up in January, I think he has to impress over these next few games. And maybe that's almost dawned on him at this moment in time. It was also interesting that he did that interview post-match as well, which could suggest, we could be seeing a little bit more of him over the next few weeks.
Just a couple of comments to wrap up. I think Jack makes a great point here. Remember our predictions before the season began. Even if we don't get playoffs, Klebs is doing a brilliant job. I absolutely agree, Jack. And to wrap up, I'm going to leave it with you, Henry, after your WD18 debut. Absolutely smashed it. Ian, with all the rumours floating around, do we think Georgie Chatfordazzi will still be here at the end of January? That's a big one to go out on.
Oh, do you know what? I've been hearing rumours being floating around the grapevine so much, but I feel, for me personally, I think he will stay. And there is mainly one thing that's making me think that he'll stay, and that's because that new contract, I think, would definitely include a release clause. And I think that release clause, a lot of clubs are looking around definitely to look at activating that.
Sorry, Henry. Sorry, just jump in on that release clause. How much do we reckon it is? If you had to guess,
it could be, knowing some of the ownership things that we do in the club, it could be about £10 million. But I think, in all honesty, I want that to be around the £20-25 million mark. That's me personally. I'd take anything between 15 and 25 million. But I think if we keep it around that mark, then I'd be pretty happy if he is to go in January. But I think that it's looking likely that he is going to stay until the end of the season. And I think we all want that as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Very similar to the Yasser Asprilla situation, I think, Samuel. We all knew he's going to go at the end of the season. What would you take for Georgie? Not in January, I'm assuming, but come the summer.
I think January you charge more. I think it's known to be January is a more difficult market to work in because it's difficult. A, you have less time to sign the replacement, and B, it's more difficult to sign the replacement because teams don't want to lose players of that quality. If he's going to go in January, I think you have to be looking at 20 to 25 million, to be honest with you, because you're charging a premium for it. I think he'll go in the summer, and I think we'll be looking between the 15 and 25 million pound mark.
So let's say hypothetically, clubs come in January, they've gone, we want Georgie Chatfordazzi for £25 million. Would you take that, or would you reject it and wait for the summer?
Yeah. No, I'd take that 25 million for him.
Would you do you reckon that would be reinvested?
No, not with this ownership, to be honest with you.
Like if the fee comes in, like hypothetically, like I agree. I agree with Henry. I agree with both of you lads. I think he'll go come the summer. But if you said to me in January, would you take a fee for Georgie? My thing would be, would be a great fee. But actually, Jack said, stop selling him, Jacob. Don't worry, I'm not trying to sell him. But I would want that money to be reinvested into XYZ. For example, that left back, central midfielder, striker would be the three.
I mean, it's a decision. It's a decision that Watford will have to make. Will we want to invest it? Will we want to take that money, reinvest it to continue hopefully a playoff push, or do we just want to take that money and keep it for the general infrastructure and cash flow of the football club? It's hopefully a decision we won't have to make in January, and one that we'll discuss in the summer.
There we go. We'll leave it there. Henry, what a pleasure, mate. And I think Jack's absolutely bang on. Thanks so much, mate, for tuning in. Great stream, lads. Love the tactical analysis. Also, a brilliant WD18 debut from Henry. He's a natural already. Henry, what a pleasure, mate. Well, yeah, we got to give a claps on that.
Thank you, boys.
Can we score predictions for Pompey?
Yeah, go on, Henry. Take us away.
Oh, okay. I've been watching a lot of Pompey recently. I know they're towards the bottom end, but I am really impressed with them recently, especially with Coventry taking it on like quite a tough Frank Lampard side, who are, they want to get forward and they want to play the game properly, which they did for the first 10 minutes. But then, a Callum Lang masterclass in all sense, denied that from Frank Lampard. But I think for me, we're going to face a test. And I think, touching on going back to systems, I want us to keep that 4. But there's a reason why I want to keep that 4-1, and mainly it's because that I know that Portsmouth press won't be as tough that we will face against Burnley. And I think if we keep that sort of momentum going, take what we brought from West Brom, bring that into Portsmouth, and I think we've got a very, very solid chance of getting a result. And I think, off my head, I want to say maybe a 2-0 win. I haven't seen us win relatively comfortable this season, so hopefully, there's a few goals into it. But if I'm going to talk from a tactical standpoint, it'll be a close game, and I wouldn't be surprised if we just about edge it.
I'm going to go 2-1. Sam?
Yeah, 2-1 is exactly what I was going to go for. I think it's going to be a game that we're going to almost keep it tight going into the first half. I think a lot of fans will go into halftime a little bit frustrated that the handbrake hasn't been let off. And I think we're going to see a battling second half display after going 1-0 down. We'll turn it around and win 2-1 with a late winner.
What a pleasure. Great stuff. Thanks so much to Sam. Thanks so much to Henry. And thanks so much to everyone who listened and watched live. If you are listening to this back and watching it back, please do leave a like on the video. Subscribe to WD18. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas, because this is the last stream we will be doing before Christmas, of course. And then obviously Boxing Day, and then we have the 29th as well. A couple of bits of news. 29th. The lads are going to be down at the Mad Squirrel for a post-match pint again after the Cardiff game, so make sure to come along if you fancy it. We're going to have the 5 players Watford should sign in January video coming up very, very soon, and also a very special announcement. So keep eyes peeled, leave a like on the video, subscribe to WD18, comment down below your thoughts, follow Sam, Henry, and myself on our social channels, and WD18 at WD18 fans, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a great week. Have a great Christmas and New Year, and up the audits. You odds.